All right, so let's continue to take a look at Coriolanus's mother and all of her issues over here. So let's go back in here. So I am on page 24 now. And this is the scene where Coriolanus's mother yells at Brutus and Sicinius. You guys will remember Brutus and Sicinius are the two sort of representatives of the common people in the sort of government, and they're the ones that get Coriolanus thrown out. And Coriolanus's mother is suitably unhappy. I mean, even Coriolanus's wife, who's pretty quiet, yells at him pretty good. So they bump into them on the street. Here comes his mother. Let's not meet her. Why? Well, they say she's mad, like she's gone completely crazy. They've taken note of us. Keep on your way. And Volumina says, "Oh, you are well met. The hoarded plague of the gods requite your love." Right? Like I hope you guys get the plague. Peace, peace, be not so loud. Right? Menenius is also there trying to sort of calm her down. She says, "If that I could for weeping, you should hear, nay, and you shall hear some. Will you be gone?" Because they're trying to run away from her. And Virgilia, who's normally quiet, says, "You shall stay too." So that these two women are forcing the men to listen to their curses and anger. I had the power to say so to my husband, right? I'm going to make you stay. I wish I could have made my husband stay so you couldn't have banished him. Are you mankind? Meaning, like, are you human beings? You're acting like animals. And she says, "Aye, fool, is that a shame? Note but this, fool, was not a man my father? Hadst thou foxship to banish him that struck more blows for Rome than thou hast spoken words," right? You're foxship, meaning you're sneaky like a fox, and you're able to get rid of Coriolanus, who struck blows for Rome as a soldier. And that guy, Coriolanus, made more wounds in other people than you've spoken words. And Sicinius, these guys are just freaking out. And Volumina says, "More noble blows than ever thou wise words, and for Rome's good," right? My son did Rome good, and you're ruining it. "I'll tell thee what, yet go. Nay, but thou shalt stay too." She's kind of letting him go and grabbing him again. "I would my son were in Arabia, and thy tribe before him, his good sword in his hand." What then? What then? He'd make an end to thy posterity, right? That he'd kill you before you could have children. Not just killing you, but killing the end of your line. Bastards and all. Good man, the wounds he does bear for Rome. I would, as Sicinius says, "I would he had continued to do his country as began, and not unknit himself the noble knot he made." Meaning, right, Sicinius says, "Listen, I wish Coriolanus was a better person, because if he was a nicer guy, I wouldn't have had to throw him out." And Brutus agrees. Volumina says, "I would he had. 'Twas you incensed the rabble. Cats that can judge as fitly of his worth as I can of those mysteries which heaven will not have earth to know." And they try to leave again, and they stop. She stops him. "Pray now, sir, get you gone. You have done a brave deed. Ere you go, hear this. As far as doth the capital exceed the meanest house in Rome, so far my son, this lady's husband here, this, do you see? Whom you have banished does exceed you all," right? Like, he's so much more important than you guys. Well, and they try to leave again. "Well, we'll leave you. Why stay we to be baited with one that wants her wits? Like, you're crazy, we're leaving." And she yells after them, take my prayers with you. I would the gods had nothing else to do but to confirm my curses," right? I wish the gods if I said bad things, they would just strike wherever I told them to. "Could I meet him but once a day, it would unclog my heart of what lies heavy to it." It's an interesting moment of with psychology. We talk about, like, you got to yell and get it out of your system. That there's even rooms you can go to when you're feeling angry. You can pay money. There's these, I forget what they're called, like racket rooms or something. I have to find out what they're called. But you can literally go into a room with a baseball bat and just beat the shit out of stuff. And they'll put things in there. You can pick, but they have a whole junkyard full of things. So if, like, you're really angry at your English department photocopier, they'll put a photocopier in the room, and you can just smash the hell out of it with a baseball bat, and throw axes at it and hack at it and stuff to kind of get it out of your system. And that's like, it's the idea of psychology. Like, if you could just get this anger out, you'd feel better. And Volumina, interestingly, says, "Boy, if I could yell at people every day like this, I think it'd be really healthy for me to scream at people every day. It really helps to get this anger out of my system, because she's just full of it, and she needs to kind of get it out of her system every day." But Volumina was full of violence and rage before this. It's one of the reasons why she wants her son to be such a great warrior, because she's sort of living vicariously through him. And then one of my favorite lines in the whole play. where Menenius says, "You'll sup with me," right? He asks her out to dinner. There's a slight, I don't think it's a big deal, but there's a slight suggestion that Menenius, who's sort of a dad-like figure, he kind of likes Volumina. I feel like he's asking her out to dinner, and she's single, and he's single, and I just feel like this is like old people who are into each other. And Menenius says, you'll sup with me?" And Volumina says, "Anger's my meat. I sup upon myself, and so shall starve with feeding." That is a ridiculously cool line. He says, "Do you want to eat with me?" And she says, "Anger's my meat," meaning I don't eat food, I eat anger. But she says, "Anger's my meat. I sup upon myself, and so shall starve with feeding." It's an amazing line because she says you think about what keeps you alive is food, right? You got to eat food or you die. But what keeps Volumina alive isn't food, it's anger. She's alive because she is so insanely angry all the time. It's like the fire. And she's like an old lady. This is like the fire that keeps her going, is how angry she is. And so she doesn't need to eat food. She has anger to live off of. And then she makes this really messed up metaphor that's really fascinating where she says, "I sup upon myself, and so do starve with feeding." That she says essentially anger is her food and drink, and she's the one that's angry. So what she's doing is essentially eating her own self, her body, which is because all she lives off of the anger, but she's anger, and that's how she lives, by draining herself of its life power. It's a fascinating line because she says, "I don't need to eat food with you. I'm essentially eating myself here because I'm made of anger, and anger is all I need to live." But then you think if you had a lot to eat, you'd get very big and fat. But Volumina says the opposite. She says, "I sup up, anger's my meat. I sup upon myself, and so shall starve with feeding." She's going to, it's funny, starve with feeding is a paradox, right? If you have a lot of food, you're not going to starve. You have too much food. But her point is that if anger is her meat, she doesn't live off of food, she lives off of anger, but it's her anger, and she just needs to eat her own anger. But if you eat yourself, you're gonna, I guess you'll gain some weight from the meat, but you're cutting sections of yourself off, which means every time you cut a piece, if you cut off your finger and eat it, if you cut off your other finger and eat it, on the one hand, you're getting calories, but on the other hand, you're getting smaller, paradoxically. Food's supposed to make you bigger, but if your food is being cut off of your own body, it's making you smaller. It's a tremendous metaphor for anger and what anger does to people. That it destroys you. When you're angry at somebody else, you think about doing all kinds of destructive things to them, but the person you're really hurting is yourself. There's like a Buddhist expression that I really like. They say that anger is like carrying around a hot coal expecting to throw it at your enemies. Right? Because when you're angry, you're thinking about how you're going to hurt other people. But if you're carrying around a hot coal in your hand to throw at people, you're burning yourself, right? The real damage with anger is being done not... When you're angry at somebody, you think, "Oh, I'm so mad at this other person. I'm going to do this terrible thing to this other person." But just by being that angry all the time, you're actually damaging you. Just like Volumina talks about how she's damaging her body or damaging herself in order to keep living, because if anger's her meat, but she's anger and she eats herself to live. It's just an amazing line. There's a very similar expression that anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die, right? That all of your anger is actually doing more damage to you than it is to other people. And I think of all of the metaphors, I think I like Shakespeare's metaphor the best. Anger's my meat. I sup upon myself and starve with feeding. It's a great line. Volumina is just an amazing badass. You can really see the Lady Macbeth connections. She has this hardness and seriousness of purpose that I really associate with Lady Macbeth, and she's fucking cool. I'd be really interested in papers that compared Volumina to other kind of overly intense, dangerous moms in pop culture. There must be, you guys must be able to think of some interesting examples of the kind of warrior moms that are very dangerous and deadly. She's quite cool. There's a lot of Cersei Lannister in Volumina too. Similarly, Cersei Lannister also kind of wishes she wanted to be a soldier with the men, and she's sort of stuck at home. She doesn't like it. And she's dealing with a lot of kind of anger issues and stuff. It's fascinating. Okay, one more video to go on this, and then, I don't know, I think we're going to need maybe more than one. I don't think I'm going to be able to wrap up Coriolanus in the next video, but I'll get us almost to the end, and then we can start thinking about Romeo and Juliet, which is not happier, but it is fun.